Welcome back, everyone, to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan and Nick Sutherland here with you again. Today's topic is all about accountability, a very, very important topic.
I think it's a great flow on from speaking with Ralph in the last podcast. It's
Yep.
talk about bloody accountability. That man's got it in spades.
Yep.
He's got it in spades.
He's got it in spades. Have we done that one? Have we done that saying before?
No, we haven't.
He's got it in spades.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Where does that saying come from?
I know. We've sort of lapsed with this, listeners, and we're sorry. We've had protests out the front of Bloke HQ. We've had riots and pitchforks and burning effigies. We're sorry. We're going to bring it back.
AKA a couple of text messages.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Has. Alright, we had a few text messages saying, can you bring back the idiosms, or whatever they're called. So,
The funny little sayings that don't particularly make sense, and we don't know what they mean either.
We want to know where they were born, and we don't want to know, we just want to pretend what happened when they were born. So, kick the bucket. Where did that... No, we've done that. What was this one?
The spades. You got it in spades. So that's an abundance of something. You've got it in spades.
Right, so go back to the first time it was used. Where was it? Who was using it?
Yeah.
Was it a man? Was it a woman?
The first thing that comes up when you say spades to me is like, and this isn't correct because this doesn't make sense. Like cards. You're playing cards, and spades is a suit. But if spades was the strongest suit, then that would make sense, but it's not. I think is hearts the strongest suit? I think it goes like hearts.
It depends what game you're playing, doesn't it?
True. Yeah, I'm not a big card playing man, but I don't think spades is the strongest suit. But then I imagine a man with a spade, and so he's possibly got a whole bunch of manure. So we're talking like out on, in the farm days when people first realised that actual poo was good for growing plants.
Yeah.
Right? And this guy...
So is this in... I think this is in Estonia in the 1800s.
Estonia?
Yeah.
Alright, so Estonia, 1800s. The guy who has the manure, his name's... what kind of Estonian names would have there been?
So, Rasmus.
Yeah. So Rasmus had a whole bunch of cattle, and he had no idea what to do with all the poo. And then another person in Estonia named Cornelius was a very, very smart man. He was actually a scientist of his time, and he had realised that manure was the best for growing crop. And so natural fertilizer, and so he gave a talk in the town square. The town squire was ringing his bell, and so everyone stopped what they were doing. Hear ye, come and listen to Cornelius give a very important talk in the town square.
The wise, he was known as.
He was the druid. He was the wizard.
Cornelius the wise.
The wise, and so he gave a talk about why. Poo, which we were just like, people would just throw it away or didn't want too much to do with it because it just seemed like a waste product, was actually very healthy for growing crop. And then so everyone's like, well, I want my crops to grow because that was all part of the main industry. And then they said, well, was it Rasmus? And then someone said, well, guys, Rasmus has it in spades over at his joint because he has so much cattle.
No, they walked past Rasmus's house and they saw him shoveling manure, and they went, the manure is in or on his spade. I think it was, he has it on spades first, and then it's changed over time. So Rasmus, yeah, they're all walking.
I imagine he had a pile as big as his house.
Yeah, but they've all left Cornelius's very woke bloody town square meeting. And they're all walking off dazed and confused, going, "God, is this real? Is manure really the way forward? Is this true?" It's like bending their brains. It's hurting. And Rasmus didn't hear about it. He's on the outskirts of town, and someone's walked past, and he's just shoveling manure into, a wheelbarrow to take off and to throw away somewhere. And they're like, Rasmus, no! You have it in spades. You have it in your spade. You have it on your spade.
They're like, weren't you at Cornelius's talk? And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? I'm too busy out here with my cattle and everything. Exactly. And little did he know he was sitting on a pot of gold. Which was a pot of poo.
Yeah. And so they're like, no, put it on your crop and your garden. Don't put it in the river and send it downstream. You've got it in spades.
And that's what all these people now must feel. I reckon there's a collective unconscious energy of Rasmus when you're driving through like a country town and like you'll see out the front of someone's driveway horse poo, $2 a bag. And so that's all because of Rasmus. That there's now a whole industry of $5 a bag horse poo that wouldn't have existed if Cornelius didn't give his talk, but also if Rasmus didn't have the quantity and quality of manure that he had.
He doesn't even know the ripple effect that he's had on society and on the world. Like rose gardens are all the better for having Rasmus.
Isn't that amazing? The beautiful rose grows out of dirty shit.
And that's once again, go back to most of our podcasts. It's like our experience is we have become better for it. We have grown out of that adversity. We've grown out of that manure that felt like manure at the time, but it's actually we were sitting in a pot of gold. There was so much value in that experience, and that leads us to being accountable today.
Yes, accountability. I'm looking forward to talking about accountability. This is a big topic for you, Nick. I reckon one of your big parts of your education is making people accountable to their own, not just their actions. Because it was funny, the extent of my research that I do for our podcasts was just before I jumped on. I just looked up at the dictionary definition of accountability. That was it, and it was just said being accountable to one's actions, and that's all that it said. Just accountable to one's actions.
Well, let's go beyond that, and let's go to being accountable for one's well-being, one's capacity to think and feel and behave. So actions are the byproduct or the end result. There's a few steps before that. Our feelings really influence our actions, but our thoughts are what drive our feelings, and our beliefs are really what drive our thoughts. So it's being accountable for... And I talk about it all the time. I was saying to you earlier, we're going to do a video series on how to completely fuck up your mental health by two blokes that have been there and done it. And the first step to screwing up your mental health is to realise that you don't even have it. So awareness is the key to all this. It's before I can be accountable for my mental health and well-being, before I can attend to my garden, as we keep referring back to, I have to realise I've got a garden. And I've got to realise that it's full of weeds, and those weeds are sometimes poisonous and noxious, so I've got to get rid of those weeds, aka old beliefs. And that the accountability really stems from having the awareness.
Yeah, it's like living in a house and you're like, I've got my house in my front yard, and then you don't realise the whole time you had a backyard as well. And then years later, you're like, where does this door go? And you open up the back door, and it's just fucking overgrown with all sorts of shit in there.
You go away on a holiday, and you come back, and there's vines that have crawled through the kitchen window, and it's starting to take over the house.
Yeah, and the accountability part of this which is actually really important, because it's like, if I go away somewhere, I can pay a gardener to look after my garden. So then when I come home, I'm like, oh, my garden's looking fantastic. It's not like that with our mental health. It's like, yes, we can get help along the way by going and speaking to someone, be it a therapist, practitioner or whatever, but at the end of the day, we're the ones who have to be accountable for that garden. We can't outsource that.
No, but your garden goes with you wherever you go. And I just finished with a client this morning. She's just finished a 6-week program, and she's a nurse. And I said, what's it like sitting for you here today compared to when you first came in? Because she first came in wanting help to deal with what was going on at work. And I said, all right, let's not make it about work and the people at work. Let's make it about you and how you're reacting or responding to all of that energy and those dynamics. And she said something really profound, I think. She said, well, when I first walked in here, I was thinking about quitting nursing and becoming a florist. And I was like, right, okay. And what have you learnt now? She said, well, yeah, it wasn't the environment. It was me. It was, what I was doing in that environment. And there's that expression: the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greenest where you water it. So she was trying to change the external environment to stop being affected by it, but in 6 weeks she's actually learnt some accountability and learned how to self-manage and self-regulate and let go of her attachments and to stop being so disturbed by her cognitive distortions. So nothing's changed. She's still at work and she's much happier. She was tired, but the same boss, the same people, the same kind of patients, the same systems, everything's the same. But her beliefs have changed, so her thoughts have changed, her feelings have changed, and her behaviour has therefore changed. So, and she didn't realise that being a florist is also a stressful job too. She just saw the bouquet of flowers at the end and was like, oh, being a florist would be wonderful. But I said to her, I actually had a chat with the florist a couple of weeks ago, and she was super stressed because you got to get them at the right time and from the right place, and there's so much that goes into obtaining that little bouquet of flowers.
Oh, there is, and everyone wants them perfect and all that. They want exactly what they want, and these things grow at different times of the year under different circumstances.
Totally. But it's the same with like Arnold Schwarzenegger. People look at him and go, "Yeah, I want that," but they don't see the blood, the sweat, the tears, the energy, the money, the early mornings, the everything that went into creating that. Same with someone who's mentally strong. They haven't seen the 13 years of mental reps that I've been doing to be able to walk out to my car and see my spotlights that have been stolen off the front and just to observe it and go, that's interesting, and to not let it ruin my day. It's they see the end result, but they don't see the journey. So,
and even all the even before that, even all like the breakdowns, like the me sitting in my room just crying for half an hour, going, I don't know if I can go on, and all that kind of stuff, and
all the suffering, the being stuck in that headspace and not being able to see straight or think clearly, and I said to this client today, I said, I'm genuinely pleased for you and proud of you because you haven't come in wanting a quick fix or a magic pill. I said, that version of you that walked in, we could have helped you to feel better about work, but then you would have been back in 6 weeks because something else would have happened and you would have had the same pattern, which would have created the same reaction. So she's actually taken the hard path and she's done the work and she's learnt to get in a position where she can now be responsible and accountable to her own mental health and well-being. She's not outsourcing it anymore. She's not letting everything dictate how she feels.
Yeah, it's so important. It's just more of a really taking a long-term solution, because that's what we want. We want people to be able to self-manage and get mentally stronger moving forward, and getting better as we go along, and not having this seesaw of where it goes back and forward.
That's sustainability. Yeah,
it's sustainability. Yeah, which is a lot of the people I work with on drugs. The first session or talk, it's like, all right, so what do I do? Do I stop now? And then we go, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about you stopping at the minute. What we need to do is start to address the reasons why and a lot of the underlying trauma, and then also how do we actually deal with a lot of these emotions that are coming up, because we're using drugs to suppress those emotions. And because everyone that doesn't understand addiction, like the family, friends, are just like, just stop. And once someone actually stops, they're like, oh, it's done. But every person that understands it knows it's not about stopping, it's about staying stopped. It's this long-term solution, because that's why people, I hate hearing that people are like, addiction's a condition of relapse, so you're going to just relapse,
Oh,
over and over again, all that kind of thing, which once again is just a societal belief system. But I had this client that I was literally chatting to last night, and it's been maybe 6 or 8 weeks, but it's been understanding and getting back in touch with the emotional body, getting in touch with the sensations in the body, and not running away from them, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now, 2 weeks ago, she stopped, and so now it's been 2 weeks cleaned off everything, and there was a lot of everything, and now it's in a place where it's like there are still some, even though they've done a lot of work, there are still some energies coming up, because she had been suppressing with drugs and alcohol for 20-25 years. But now there's these tools and resources to be able to now understand and not run away from those feelings, to be in relationship with those feelings. So it's
what
this
about
longer term solution.
so? And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. You know how the sunlight we can feel is years old. That left the sun thousands of years ago, and we're only just feeling it now. So it's in transition, yeah.
Well, it's not years, but it's 8.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, the light that we're saying, a star that we can see. You know,
Our star, like yeah, you're right. So our star which is a lot. It's about 8.5 minutes it takes for the light to get here. So where we see our sun is actually where it was 8.5 minutes ago. But yeah,
yes.
there's stars that are like
That are non-existent, but we're still receiving the light from them.
yeah, they supernovaed
Yeah.
500,000 years ago. Yeah.
So if you help someone and they've supernovaed their trauma, there's still going to be this ripple effect, this after effect, where they may feel like taking drugs, but there's no longer a need for it, because it's just that lingering neurological pathway that's been so deeply ingrained, isn't it? So being observant and aware of that and understanding, there's an old, outdated desire for me to take drugs, but there's actually no driving force behind this anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where the tools of awareness and everything come into play, because then you can just watch those things as
Yeah.
opposed to being them, because there still is these like just mental associations and habit formations. Like
Yeah.
someone can have started drinking because of some sort of trauma and that kind of thing, and then you can address that. But then they've been doing it for so long, then they've just created certain associations. So if it's like, as soon as it hits 5 p.m., that's an association for a glass of wine, or as soon as
Yeah.
I'm in a social situation, it's just mental associations that just need to be broken.
I had a client come in and he was diagnosed with prostate cancer 6 weeks ago, and he's got this underlying fear of hospitals because his brother died in hospital, and is very emotional, which is understandable to a degree, about this diagnosis, because his father died of prostate cancer. So there's the prostate cancer diagnosis, but then there's all these underlying associations that are just creating this hypersensitivity around it as well.
Yeah, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because our underlying beliefs create our reality. So
Yeah.
it's like, if I,
Did you hear that woman died of cancer? She got diagnosed with cancer. They said you've got 3 months to live. Around 3 months later, she died. They did an autopsy. There was no cancer.
yeah, yeah,
She convinced
crazy.
herself to
Yeah.
fucking die.
This used to happen in ancient tribes, where like there would be the witch doctors and the soothsayers and all that kind of thing, and they would place a curse on someone in the tribe, and that person would die. They literally would die from being
Because
cursed,
they
which is
believed it so deep.
so
It was
strongly.
such a deep belief. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where hypnosis and the stage shows and all that works, because we are so suggestible. That's why advertising works and marketing works, and we're so easily influenced those things, because we are suggestible creatures. Some are more suggestible than others, but yeah, like it's if you deeply believe it, you're going to manifest it. You're going to
It's
become it.
and that's one of the issues people run into because the ego thinks it's right. The ego thinks it knows everything and it's right. But then the more you delve into this stuff, you realize that yeah, we're so susceptible to everything. It's crazy. It's like I don't know if I've brought this up on the podcast, but they did one study. I can't remember the book it was from, but all they did was they would go up to people in a street and there was a little story, just a couple of paragraphs. They only take you a minute or two to read it, and there was a main character, and it was a fairly neutral story. But what they didn't tell them was just before that they had a random person come up and give them, it was a really cold day, either a nice warm cup of coffee and just say, can you hold that for a sec while I do up my shoes? So they're holding this nice warm cup of coffee, or some really cold drink, right? So the warm drink obviously made them feel a bit nice and toasty warm for a minute because it was cold. So, and then they just asked at the end of the story, just after this, what do you think of the main character? And the people who were holding the nice warm coffee had much better feelings about this main character. They were saying things like, yeah, he seems warm and considerate and blah, blah, blah. Whereas the people that were holding the cold drink were like, no, I don't like him, something's wrong about him, he seems cold and blah blah blah, right? Or just because, and it was a neutral character just because they're holding a fucking different temperature drink. Like that's how susceptible we are,
Have you seen those videos where it asks you to focus on a person doing star jumps and then there's a few other people and then it says, okay, go back and watch it in slow motion. And there's actually people dressed in panda suits just walking through, and you can't see them. You don't see them because you don't have the awareness of them.
Yeah, it's our our mind is just it's making assumptions all the time, and it's like
there's so much information to process, it can't process it all, so it has to prioritize. What's more important?
One of the great ones, a really basic one, and people can Google this. It's like a checkers or chessboard kind of thing, and so the squares are white and grey, and they're checkered, like I said. And then you look at it, and it's just a perfectly normal checkered board. And then it says, okay, now look at this square here. And you'll see there are two white ones next to each other. Yeah, but your mind just told you that it was all perfect and it was grey and white. Yeah, until you really laser focused. And that's what our mind's doing with everything, Like I've seen her driving around on the scooter here, like I've seen a few snakes and stuff. Only a couple. But now my mind's drawn to like sticks and fucking bits of rope and all that kind of shit on the road because it's trying to fill in this blank.
I was working with an Olympic mountain bike rider, and they were going through a series of events where they kept crashing, and we sort of had a discussion, and all of a sudden I heard him say, yeah, and I keep going, right, there's a rock there, so avoid that, and there's a tree there, avoid that, and then I'll have a crash. And I'm like, yeah, but you bring into your focus exactly what you don't want. Instead of training your mind to focus on there's the path through, your mind is focusing on the obstacle, and so you are going to be drawn towards the obstacle, so no wonder you keep crashing.
And that's why so many people think the world's a scary place, because when we've spoken about how so much of society is in survival, so we're in this fear mechanism, if we want to get woo-woo, these lower chakras, these survival instincts. So what happens, this reticular activating system, which is what's filtering our reality, it's like if we see the world as a scary place, then we're going to find threat. Yeah, because there's just as much threat as there is beauty and love and awe. And it's like we can, depending on what our filter is going to let in, we're going to see either one.
But that filter is based off a belief that this world must be perfect. So many people have this utopian belief that we want to live in utopia. And that irrational belief creates an irrational thinking style, a cognitive distortion that is to disqualify all the positives. And that's so imagine there's 10 plus signs and 10 negative signs. If you believe that it should be perfect, your mind is going to be drawn to all the negative signs or symbols, and so your perception of that image is going to be, oh no, it's really negative.
Yep.
But in fact, it's completely neutral.
It is. It's all neutral, and we just give it that meaning. Speaking about the cancer thing, like that, because when we first found the genome and that we have this DNA and this blueprint, and we thought it was very deterministic, And then everyone was like, oh, well, I've got the gene that gives me a 30% greater chance of getting breast cancer and that thing. And I can't remember which celebrity it was, but I remember they just found out they had the gene, weren't diagnosed with cancer or anything yet, but had their breast cut off, like as a proactive approach,
Oh
right?
my.
Little do we know, like there's a whole field of science called epigenetics, which epi means above the gene, which means that our genes aren't deterministic. Our genes make us maybe susceptible to things, but we can have a gene that, imagine if it's an off or on switch, that never gets turned on our entire life based on the environment that gene is in. And that's both our external environment but also our internal environment, which is why so many people who are holding on to resentment seem to get cancer.
So here's one for you. My biological father died of motor neurone disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody said, I can't remember who it was, that, there's a 30% chance that he'll pass it on to his children. And if I just blindly allowed their belief to enter my belief system, that would have increased my chances of developing motor neuron disease.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't allow their belief in because I didn't know what research their belief was based off, if it's fact, if it's just hypothesis, or just them making the fucking number up. So I don't know, but I don't have any part of me that's focused or anxious or worried about developing motor. I'm not locked in on it, because if I was, it'd be like the mountain bike rider hitting a rock, and my chances are I would end up with it.
It's like we've spoken about with renunciation, or saying like, I'll never have a drink again, or never do a drug again. I'm still tied to it. It's still taking up room in my consciousness. And there's a term for what you said, and I can't remember if it's white coat syndrome or it's white coat something, which it means that when we get this information from a person of authority, so we're like, and doctors are seen as a person of authority, so we get this information, and there's a far greater chance of that seeping into our subconscious and our belief systems. Like the lady who got the 3-month diagnosis, that sunk right in, and she went and created a belief, I'm going to die in 3 months. And she did, even though she didn't have cancer.
It came from a credible source, a man in a white coat with a
an authority figure. Yeah. It's our beliefs are just.
So imagine if you went to school when you were a kid and you saw a kid rock up and his face was like, because his parents said to him one day, if you keep doing that face, the wind will change and your face will stay the same. He rocked up and his face was all twisted and bent out of shape. Highly susceptible, that kid.
Well, he needs some belief work done.
But go back to my client that finished the 6 weeks. So, and her desire to become a florist because she wanted to get rid of the suffering by removing the symptom, not dealing on the root cause. And go back to Ralph in the last podcast, and I told her about Ralph, and I said, here's a guy who's a Purple Heart recipient, who's had both his legs blown off and learned to walk again, is a gold medalist in the Paralympic Games, and his greatest achievement is creating inner peace. And I told him about how he got depressed after winning the gold medal. It was a fleeting, very shallow, dopamine hit. And I said, because we're all hell bent on chasing happiness externally and for things to make us happy, but this man, through all of his experience, finally realized, no, it's internal, it's not external. So and that's that accountability again.
Yeah, I think to tie it back, it's being accountable to our beliefs about situations and not just about the situation itself.
Well, I took accountability when the person made the comment about motor neuron disease. I took accountability over my belief system and chose not to be influenced or them to impose their belief upon me. Mm-hmm. So, that's that accountability. There was... I guess accountability is important to me, because I see so many people walking around in ignorance, and the source of all suffering is attachment and ignorance. So not in a judgmental term, just in a very factual and literal sense that people can't see or don't understand. And Christine Morgan is the CEO of the Australian Mental Health Commission. And her people got in touch with me because she was doing a trip around Australia and wanted to touch base with mental health practitioners, but also people that have been in the mental health system. And so her and I had a one-on-one discussion and a really great chat and a lot of alignment, and I'd love to bring her on the podcast. But then she invited me to the town hall meeting where her role was just to listen to people that had been in the system. And I took a couple of clients with me who had been through the program and now in maintenance, just to bring them into the picture. And so we're sitting at a table on the outskirts, and all we could hear was this outsourcing of responsibility. Oh, it was always, why isn't the system doing more for us? Why can't you do this more? Why can't we get more money for this? Why aren't you fixing us? Why aren't you making us better? And my clients and I had a chat in the car park afterwards, and I asked them, had they heard that? And they were like, it was fucking incredible. Did you hear, everyone, how no one took ownership, no one took responsibility, no one was accountable for themselves. They just wanted someone else to make them feel better. Mm-hmm. And I just went, I think that was such an important and classic snapshot of society as a whole. We want other people or other things or other events or situations to make us happy. So accountability for me comes down to, the golden rule in Myndfit is that you are responsible for your happiness. And if you're not happy, that's on you, not on what someone else has said.
Yeah. It's hard because I think you're right.
There's people that don't have the capacity. So there is mental illness, and there is people who do need help and support. I'm not being insensitive to that, but just in general terms, there is, we need to do more to. It's like mental health. It's like, why isn't my body strong? Why don't I have big biceps? Well, it's because you haven't gone to the gym and created that. No, but someone should give me biceps. Really? Go and do the work.
Doesn't make any sense, does it?
It's irrational. That's it. It's just irrational, and that's what hurts my heart a lot. And that's what gets me up every day and pushing and progressing. And I'm going to create a mental health and mindfulness centre here in Mornington and everything, because I want to help people come into this understanding that there is a lot they can do on their own, but they have to come and learn it. And
that's right.
We're not all born with it. We're not all taught how to do it.
No,
I
we're not.
I had to learn the hard way. You had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, but it's like, and that seems to be the way right now, that most people do learn the hard way. But then once enough people, we always hit this critical point where when enough people understand this stuff, like, hey, I need to take care of my mental health. Because like if you walk out now and stop 100 people in the street and say, hey, what do you want out of life? They'd be like, I just want to be happy. Like 99 out of 100 would say, I just want to be happy. Right?
I do this.
Yeah.
I ask every single client, and then I ask, what is the definition of happiness? 99% of them say, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, and I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah, but there's that ignorance. There's that I don't know what happiness is. I've got a concept of what happiness is, but the issue also is that most people want more, as we were talking about in other podcasts. There's always this constant need and desire, and if I'm earning $50,000 a year, and I make an aim, right, I'd like to earn $100,000 a year. That will make me happy. All right, and then I work and get re-educated and get a promotion, and suddenly I'm earning $100,000 a year. That's going to make me happy, in inverted commas, for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months. But then, guess what's going to happen?
Not even that long.
Well, until the new car smell wears off.
Yeah.
And then, now I want to earn $200,000 a year. And so, the definition of happiness is to be content. And to be content with who we are and what we have. And Bruce Lee said a really good quote, be content but never satisfied.
It's cutting out the middleman, really. It's like everyone wants to set goals, and they want to say, "Well, I want to set this goal because if I earn this much, it'll make me content, or if I have this car, it'll make me content." And so, well, if we can just cut out the middleman and say, "Well, let's just make the goal being content," then you don't have to strive for all these things. Because, like you said, you cannot get there because it's like once you do make $200,000, you start hanging out with people who make $500,000, and then you feel deficient. This whole thing's deficient. A deficiency story. That's where
it's the ego. It's the ego in it driving it all.
It is like every mental health issue. At the end of the day, comes down to this belief that I'm deficient in some way, and so it never ends. And it's all perspective. Like there was this guy. I don't know if I've told this story before, but I can't remember what country it was. Whether it was Dubai or whatever. I can't remember what his nationality was. But investor, he was worth like $12 to $15 billion, right? 12 to 15 billion. That's a lot of money. We're talking about 50 grand, 100 grand. It's fucking 15 billion, right? Yeah. During the financial crisis in 2008, his net worth went down to 4 billion, right?
Poor guy.
Poor guy. Guess what he did?
Committed suicide.
He committed suicide.
Fuck off. Really?
He killed himself, right? So it's like it's all this is this whole chasing the rainbow thing, and it's never enough. And it's like this man says, all of a sudden now I've got this status where I'm worth 12 billion, and I'm around other people who earn 12 billion. Now I'm worth 4. What a piece of shit I am. What shame I have to the degree that I'm going to end my life when I'm worth 4 billion. Whereas if you speak to someone who's living on the streets, who's like, trying to cash cans to get by and get a meal, and you're like, hey, what would it be like with $4 billion? They'd be like, it'd be fantastic. It'd be wonderful, right?
Well, they may not. They'd be like, they can see that money is the poison. Money is a cancer as well. So
yeah, but it's needed, It's like
of course it's needed. You can't help people if you're down in the gutter with them. Like I charge for my services. I bought my Land Rover Defender, and that is my forever car. So I can't envisage having another car because I'm so content with it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to dick around with it. I'm putting an intercooler in it. I'm going to do this and that with it and play around with it. But I am so content with that car.
Yeah. Play around with it. That was the thing, though. It's play.
Yeah.
It's play.
Yeah. But because I know it's not perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect. So it's going to be able to do this, but it's not going to be able to do that. All right, but I can play around with it and have some fun with it, and it makes me happier, but it's not the source of my happiness.
No, this is accountability. So it's like. It's like if you stop those people on the street and ask them, what do you want out of life? I want to be happy. And then it's like, well, what is happiness? Well, I don't know. Or they'll start describing things.
If I get what I want, if things go my way, if people like me.
Yeah, they'll start describing. So it's being accountable to saying, that's rubbish. Yeah. Happiness is being content, and that's what I want to be. I want to be content. And then I have to actually work out why I'm not content, or what contentedness looks like for me. Yeah. Now I'm at least starting to take ownership from my life and not just expecting a miracle to happen, which is going to make everything okay.
So that's why I'm opening this meditation and mindfulness center as well, because in my office here, this is where we do the cognitive retraining and changing the neurological pathways. But down there, it's going to where we do the meditative exercise and start conditioning the mind to let go of its attachments and to shift out of that irrational thinking and move more into logic and just to be able to be present. Mm-hmm. But I think it was a Socrates quote that said, "Excellent, we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence, therefore, is a habit and not an act." And a lot of people get caught up in, I've got a gym membership, and they go to the gym once a week, and they're like, that creates a false illusion that I am healthy, But it's only acts of health. It's not a habit of health. If we donate when the bushfire appear, and that's the only time we've donated. Oh, I'm a charitable person. I'm a generous person. No, you did one act of generosity. Yeah, it's like, and so why I'm so excited about creating this space is because we're going to be able to help people to create a consistent practice. It's going to be to create a habit, a habit of that a byproduct of that is going to be more content, just a natural byproduct from doing the exercises that we need to do. We need to exercise our mind. Our mind needs to meet resistance in order to get stronger, just like our body does. So sitting down without moving a muscle in a Vipassana meditation, you're going to experience sensations that you're very uncomfortable with. But if you can sit there and observe them and realize they're going to pass away after a period of time, your mind is going to come out of that meditation being so much stronger.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I get up and do just a silent meditation every morning, and you still fall into the trap of, you know, oh, that was a bad meditation. That was a good meditation, because the resistance is all those thoughts coming up. You know,
but the good meditation is the harder meditation. If
Correct.
you want to go into that binary thinking. And so many clients would come to a class, or students would come to a class and say, how's your meditation? Oh, it was wonderful. It was so easy today. And I'm like, okay. So you've come up with an expectation that if I sit and I can just sit without moving a muscle and I find it very easy, then that's a good meditation. Where it's probably not. The better meditation will be where you really have to struggle and work harder.
That's right, yeah, because you get all of a sudden you got space for all these thoughts and all these feelings that come up, and then it's being with those that builds resilience, with being with those in our day-to-day life, because ideally these practices that we do, we want them to gradually bleed out into more and more of our life. Otherwise, they just become another crux.
If you experience that detaching from the desire or an aversion on that deep level when you're in a Vipassana meditation, that has a natural ripple effect through here. It changes your mind. It changes who you are. So next time you're out in public and someone cuts you off, because of the meditation that you've done, you're going to be in a more equanimous state, so you're not going to be disturbed by that outside occurrence. But getting into that space, it takes discipline. Becoming Arnold Schwarzenegger took discipline. And there's this great quote by Abraham Lincoln, the moustacheless one, and he says, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And so I go back to your discussion about everyone's dopamine is the biggest addiction, and everyone's getting this quick fix. Everyone's getting this, I want it now. I want to be healthy, but then I'm gonna go and get KFC because I'm just hungry now and I want food now and I can't be bothered preparing a nutritious meal. So people go more for the quick fix and the impulsive feeling based action instead of the bigger picture. What's really best for me? What does the situation demand of me? Not is it that I just want.
Yeah, I've been doing like the reverse Arnie. I've been doing the trying to put myself in more uncomfortable situations to try and find out a bit more about my motivations. So just recently, I stopped going to the gym. The gym's been a big part of my life for the last 15 years. Apart from when I was a drug addict, that period, not much gym going on.
Still wearing sleeveless tops, though. So sun's out, guns out.
That's right. Yeah.
You just get tuck shop arms now.
That's right. And so I got back last 2 days. I got back into it. But it was about 6 weeks, and it's just there's a beautiful teaching that says, if you want to know why you do something, don't do it and watch what happens. Yeah, and now most people don't want to watch what happens because normally what happens isn't very nice. Yeah,
but this into suffering.
Well, you do. You go into suffering. Yeah. I found myself. I would feel more depressed. I would find myself judging myself a little bit more. I would find out that yes, I do go to the gym because I do feel better, have more energy. It helps with my mental health as well by working out. But then also I go to the gym because there's a part of me that also likes women to look at me and go, oh, that guy looks all right. And it's like just acknowledging the whole package, like not lying to yourself, yeah? Like you would see this with smoke. You used to work with smokers, and it's like, I say this with people with cigarettes. Like specifically do, cigarette hypnotherapy, but I'm like, oh, next time you have a smoke, like you got the craving and you grab the packet out, just put it down and just wait 15 minutes, yeah, and just watch what happens in your body and your mind, and then have your cigarette, but just watch what happens, Now, the first step is people first of all don't want to do that because they're like, I want it now. It's my life. I want a cigarette right now, and I'm fucking having it, right? Which is a child talking, and then it's like, well, okay, I did it. Maybe someone did it, but I started getting pretty like agitated and a fair bit edgy and everything, and I was just really wanting to have it. And I'm like, oh, so you've got anxiety? And it's like, no. I don't have anxiety. I'm just saying. So, but you got really, really agitated and really, really edgy, yeah. So you got some sort of anxiety going on, right? So, and people don't want to feel that or even acknowledge that they've got that going on, and that may be a reason why they're smoking in the first place. And it's all of a sudden just bringing conscious awareness to this stuff. So now going back into a relationship like me with the gym, which is a healthy one at the end of the day, but just sort of understanding why as well and the real motivations behind it. Because if I did that whole process and found out that I was purely doing it just because I want women to look at me and go, oh, he looks okay, even though I'm happily with a partner, that kind of thing, then that's something I'd really need to look at and work on. But that was a small part of the package, and the main part was, yes, it's good for my mental health and good for my energy levels.
It's an experiment, and what you've done there is the third pillar of the 5 pillars in the Myndfit program. It's testing your relationship and do an experiment with it. And going without for a period of time to do exactly that. See what comes to the surface and see how agitated. If you can go without drinking for 2 months and you don't get disturbed, then you're in a healthier relationship with it. But if you go without drinking for 2 months and it's a struggle because you've got all these cravings, then you're in a codependent relationship with it.
You're finding out who's boss.
Exactly. So it's this whole concept of, am I in an interdependent or am I codependent? Is it a crutch and do I need it? Or is it just something I can enjoy? So yeah, it's who's boss, who's in control here.
It is. Yeah, it's good to test these different things.
Are you flexing your bicep just because you've been back at the gym for 2 days?
That wasn't you'd know if it was a flex, don't worry about that.
Listeners, if you jump on Ryan's YouTube channel and just watch this podcast, he's just put one hand behind the head and I had
an itchy back of the neck.
I had an itch. There's a woman walking past and there's this subconscious part of him. Flex.
You know what it's like. You suck the belly in when a girl walks past. It's just human stuff, I've been revisiting a lot of Jung at the minute, and just all about owning all these parts and all these shadows and everything, and and then also if you translate that along to like Alan Watts and that kind of thing, it's just having fun with these things, like having fun with our humanness and our human nature and that kind of thing, because. These are, a lot. We've had a lot of clients who've had troubles with this. Like they've been in relationships, yet they beat themselves up for looking at other women or thinking about other women and that kind of thing. And it's like, dude, you don't understand the biological drive that you're trying to fight against with your conscious mind. Yeah, it's like we get to, and this is accountability too, because like we get to a fork in the road, and like we walk past a, fucking really sexually attractive woman, and then it's like, oh shit, I'm in a relationship, I shouldn't be looking at her and shouldn't be thinking about her with her clothes off. Now I'm guilting and shaming myself, and I'm starting a downward spiral. Yeah, otherwise it's like, oh, I'm going to enjoy that attractive woman, she was hot as fuck, and then I just keep going on, right? It's like, hey,
I think whether you get stuck or whether you can keep moving.
Yeah, we get stuck beating ourselves up for automatic thoughts. This is one of the big things I try and teach people. It's like 98% of whatever is happening up here is just self-generated by this mind.
But we spoke about that so early on, I remember, with the trolls thing, I think, and the Taylor Harris, and where does it become being objectifying women compared to just admiring women? And yeah, we did a whole podcast around that. But it was amazing what happened with me when I got with my current partner. and I observed this, is I couldn't look at another woman. There was just no other woman that existed. There was no other women on the planet, because I was just, the love chemicals were just pouring through me, and it was such a weird thing. It was so weird because
It's infatuation, Nick.
it
happens
was,
in every relationship. First 3 months.
yeah, and finally it wore off, and I still, I still have no interest in any other woman, but I can actually see other women again now.
But that's where so many guys get stuck, and women need to understand this as well. Like it's just this black and white thinking and these stupid assumptions that we make. It's like if I see a really attractive woman and go, "Fuck, she's really attractive," and then keep walking, it doesn't automatically mean that I want to sleep with her.
I look at men too. I look at men and women. I'm just like, because I see everything. I'm like, oh right. He looks healthy, or she looks healthy, or whatever. But my last partner, she had been married to a Muslim man, and so she's gone from a Muslim man, and you're talking about 98% of us, the human nature, blah blah blah. Muslims don't look at other women, or aren't allowed to look at other women, or I don't know how well they actually achieve that. But she went from being with someone who doesn't look at other women, and it's against his faith and religion to look at other women, to being with an Australian guy who was just like, da, 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 da. Oh yeah, wow, oh she looks interesting. And I said that to her. I was like, oh, did you notice the unusually large breasts on that woman? And it wasn't that I found them sexual. It was just fucking interesting. It could have been a dude. Did you see the dude with the third leg? It was just such a neutral thing for me.
Yep.
But it hurt her so deeply because of her belief that I shouldn't be looking at other women. Plus, some other things that were going on. So it was a really interesting discussion to have.
Yeah, it's hard. But whatever of our humanness we try and suppress is going to come out in other ways. It's like if and you see this like in the church and that kind of thing, and celibacy and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just, if you keep these natural urges are suppressed for long enough, and once again, if I come back to Jung, because that's what I'm reading at the minute, you keep pushing this shadow away. It has to come out in some other ways. It has to come out that it needs some sort of expression. So that's when these real weird behaviours start coming out. It's
but
like
we do need to modify our behaviours when they are harmful to ourselves or others. We need to override a lot of our old, outdated human nature.
Yes. Yeah, of course. But like to think that you would walk through a shopping centre of 1,000 people and have your head down just to make sure you're not looking at any other women is completely fucking stupid.
Like, but on the flip side of that, walking through a supermarket with 1,000 women and going, "Oh, you're hot. Oh, you're great."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So it's finding that balance.
It is. It's a balance between over expression and suppression. At the end of the day, but like, because obviously there's social constructs that we have to live in, and morality that we have to live in. But I am, like where we do such weird shit as human beings. Like right now, I can go on my Instagram and see pretty much just naked women, right? Whereas, it wasn't
because of what you're following, or would you have to search for it?
It's an example, a hypothetical example.
Pull your phone out, Haas. Show me.
It's a hypothetical example. It's like the feed.
You might want to learn how to frame things before you say
the Instagram mix is like a mix of like spiritual teachings, psychology, and tits and ass. So it's a combination. Anyway. And I'm not ashamed about that. I follow maybe 2 or 3 accounts of chicks who just show bikinis all the time, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no desire to have sex with them.
Okay,
right?
But do you hide that from Mel, your partner?
No, not at all.
If she got on your Instagram feed, would you experience a heightened state?
She has complete. I don't have a lock on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing whatsoever. That's the one of so what happened for me, and I'm going to get to the weird shit humans do in a second. Like for me, the whole phone thing, like I'm someone who is probably too extreme. Like I used to just like back home when we had a car, I'd go to the shops and just leave my car unlocked with the keys in the ignition and go into the shops. Well, and like sometimes with my wallet just on the seat, right? Because Mel's like, this comes back to the whole, living in fear or and what we attract, And Mel's like, fucking put your wallet away, lock the car. And I'm like, all right, because this is what my dad used to do. That's why I do it. But basically, I'm like, oh, no one's gonna steal it, and if they do, good luck to them. They can take the $40 in my wallet, and I'll get new cards. Like, I'm not gonna live my life trying to protect everything.
Okay, so in terms of Myndfit stuff, you're not attached to it.
No.
Yeah, it just is what it is.
But
So
one of my values is there's certain energies that I find just like gross, right? So here's what one of them. This is why I'm getting to this point. Yeah. When I speak to people and a woman or a guy has just gone through their partner's phone and they've found out their passcode and all that kind of stuff, like and even though they found absolutely nothing, I'm like, that energy of like trying to hide, what you're looking up on your phone or that it doesn't matter what's on there. The energy behind that is just so toxic to me.
What about fully grown adults having an ice cream and then hiding the wrapper in the bin, like burying it in the bin? It's like a 5-year-old. It's so hilarious.
And it's so funny because we've got this thing. It's like someone will do that, like the ice cream, and go, "Yeah, I got away with it." But guess what? You didn't get away with shit because you were watching it. You were watching yourself do that, and there's part of you that knows that's shitty energy. Yeah, and there's a saying: how you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. Right, and I love that quote. How you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah.
So there's another quote that if someone's bitching to you about another person, they're going to be bitching to another person about you.
Yeah. That's why if someone's doing that, like speaking to me, I'm like Homer Simpson in the bush, just back slowly through the bush, because automatically part of you can't trust that person. Yeah. Plus, plus talking about the energy of gossip is like, ugh. It's horrible. And like, what was I get to? Yeah. So the weird things like humans used to do, like, because we used to think that a woman's ankles were sacrosanct, right? And so it's like a woman would never show their ankles. Because and that's why they were the really long dresses all the way down to the floor, because the ankles would just men would go into a craze. But
do
you know how
on higher socks instead of full length dresses to show the knees?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. But no, but the knees might have been even more. But what would happen? This is how crazy it got, and people look this shit up. This is real. Men would get too turned on by the legs of a table. They would put little doily things at the bottom of the legs of tables because it would remind them too much of ankles.
Wow! I'm just saying this ankle porn industry in the 1800s or something. Don't you see the cankles on her?
Like carved in stone or something, a stone tablet of an ankle and someone jacking off to it.
They're such irrational creatures. But go back to that balance before. I love the Einstein quote about balance isn't staying perfectly still. Balance is like riding a bicycle. You go left and right and left and right. As long as you keep moving and don't fall over, then you're in balance. And so if we create an expectation that just imagine a graph, and there's -10 to 0 to +10, and 0 is neutral. So we are going to fluctuate between -5 and +5. Yeah, that's like riding the bike. We're sort of going left and right. If we have an aversion to go into that negative space, if we have an aversion to looking at a woman and thinking she's attractive, when we naturally do it, that's going to trigger this deep disturbance in us, which is going to have a negative ripple effect. We're going to beat ourselves up. We're going to need comforting. We're going to need alcohol or food or whatever. We're going to self-flagellate again, get the whip out. It's so that it's not the thought that of the woman that creates that ripple effect. It's the belief or the expectation that I shouldn't do it.
Yes, yeah, that's the swear word again. Shouldn't. It's this, like someone who's got clean from drugs just has a thought about drugs again, and then they get to that fork in the road and say, I shouldn't be thinking about drugs again. I can't believe you're thinking about them again. You're such a dickhead. I thought you were past this stuff, right? So all of a sudden, we're down that spiral again.
Yeah, but go back to Vipassana meditation. The very purest sense of it is seeing the attachment to an aversion or an attachment to a desire. I can't, or I want. I don't want, or I want. I don't want, or I want. We're constantly bouncing between these two concepts, and when we're doing that, we can't be content. We're not present. We're not just in the here and now. So for a drug addict, I can't think about drugs. All of a sudden, it blocks that off, and you're naturally going to drift into it. So you're setting yourself up to fail, and you're going to set yourself up to suffer, and then you're going to need to make yourself feel better. So then you're probably going to go and find something that used to make you feel better, which is a drug. Congratulations, you've just self-perpetuated.
It's the guilt and shame cycle. It's the guilt and shame cycle. It's very counterintuitive. It's like, well, what I do if I make myself feel guilty, it means I won't do the thing.
Yeah.
But like, when I'm stewing in...
Thank you, church.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, church. And then when I'm stewing in guilt, I'm like, oh, I hate this. I want to escape. How do I normally escape? Oh, I escape with drugs. Oh, bang, 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 bang. It keeps going around.
Then I'm such an idiot for being back on drugs. And all of a sudden, Ryan's program's not working. Well, it's not Ryan's program that's not working. It's you're not making his program work because you're blah, 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 blah.
And it's just, this is all accountability again. Because when we're in these states of like, I shouldn't be having these thoughts, or I haven't trained or looked after my own happiness, taken care of my own garden, everything's about me. So like, all I think about is me, and there's no capacity for me to start to think about greater things. And you're
in survival mode.
You're in survival mode.
You're in struggle town. Your hands are bound. You're in no position to look after anyone else. So. You know when you're in a good space, when you can be happy for other people that are achieving things or doing things that you're not. You're in a good space. You can't be happy for other people unless you're happy within yourself. You can't give away something that you don't have. And if you don't have happiness, you can't be happy for others.
That's true. And then also, if we bring Einstein back into it, then we can start to use our mind for greater things. Because all of a sudden I don't have to just think about myself and my own survival. It's like we all have a human mind, right? So we all have this capacity, unless we have brain damage and that kind of thing. But the vast majority of it, we all have a human mind, right? Now, Einstein, what did he used to use his human mind for? Well, he would do thought experiments where he would be riding a bike and imagine he was riding at the speed of light and there was a beam of light next to him and wondered if that light would start to bend. He imagined going down an elevator in the middle of space faster than the speed of light and wondered whether space would bend, and then start doing the mathematical equations to work that out. That's what he was doing with his human mind. What are most people doing? Let me check my boyfriend's phone and look at his DMs and find out who he's been fucking messaging. The same mind.
But he would also go and stand in a garden at the university that they made just for him. It was Einstein's garden. And he would look at nature and he would intentionally blow his mind by looking at nature. He would intentionally, when he couldn't solve a problem, a maths problem or something, he would go and stand in this garden. Because he wanted to be overwhelmed, because it would shut his mind down and it would reset it, and then he could start thinking clearly. But what he realised, without realising it, that his mind was becoming so distorted and bent out of shape thinking about this problem that he couldn't see straight or think clearly. So going to this garden, he would override it. And the same thing when I couldn't open my door of my lounge room because of agoraphobia. That was, my mind was so distorted and bent out of shape that it then disabled my body. And that was because I wasn't being accountable. I had no idea I had mental health. I had no idea that there was things I had to do to look after it, and things I had to learn and condition it and train it, and get into a state of health. So I'm standing there at my door, and I got so bent out of shape it disabled me, and I was in no position to go and be of use to anyone else.
Yep. Yeah.
Crazy minds, crazy.
Yeah, it's so powerful and so neurotic and so amazing.
But
and
it's
so
the imagination, Has, and it's, go back to, what was his name? Osho, I think, said there's no past and there's no future. So what we're suffering is our memory and our imagination. And if we leave the imagination to its own devices, it's going to create, by human nature, all the worst case scenarios. My boyfriend's cheating on me, I've got to check his phone. It's going to create all these insecurities and anxieties. So we have to be accountable for our own minds. We have to try, if we're going to use our imaginations, use them like Einstein, for good, instead of for evil and for causing our own suffering.
Yeah, and if you can't do that, and you're just so stuck in yourself and can't get past these patterns, that's when you reach out and you start going to the mental gym, Nick, that you're creating, and starting to work with someone, so you can start to get the tools, people who've been through this stuff, and start to get this thing up here working in a much better fashion.
I've been so emotionally overweight. My mind, I was obese in terms of my mental health. And so I had to do 12 months of exercise and get myself into shape. So, it's when I'm working with people, it's from that compassionate sense. I've been there. I know what your mind's capable of. I know what your mind's doing. I can see the cause and the effect. Same with you, working with people with addiction. We can't do it by ourselves.
No, we don't. All right, I think we'll finish up there. So be accountable for, if you say that you want to be happy, be accountable for what happiness is, and then what that means to you, and then why you're not happy, and then understand that it's your job. It's your job.
Don't be disappointed if you keep taking the easy path and keep, having a drink off a temporary impulse instead of reaching your long-term gain through taking the hard path and understanding that in that moment you may want to drink, or you may want something to eat, or you may want to gamble, but it's not conducive to you reaching your long-term goal, and it will pass. So don't be so reactive. Don't be so emotionally driven.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just going to finish up with this Alan Watts quote that I read yesterday. I really like it. The meaning of life is to just be alive. It's so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. That's my message for people. You're alive, you're enough, you're not deficient.
No, I did that on my last Instagram post. Today I am enough, and today I have enough.
On the same page again, Nick.
Oh, look at us.
Look at us go.
Look at us.
Let's go. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you so much.
Thanks for those that have been giving us ratings. We've got some star ratings and some...
We've got a bit of a bump. We've got a bump up.
Ooh.
We've got some 5 stars going on, which is great.
But we're not deficient without it, so we're not codependent on getting those bumps.
But give us them, because we want more exposure and better guests on, and that's how you do it. So
we want to help more people.
I'm also living in reality.
Yeah, we want to help more people.
Yeah. All right, Nico. Pleasure as always, my friend.
Yep. Peace, everyone.
Peace.